The Cheyenne identity is rooted in the Algonquian language group, a vast linguistic family encompassing more than 30 tribes across northern North America. The term Cheyenne itself is believed to originate from the Dakota Sioux word Cheyenne, a diminutive form of Cheyenne, referring to people who speak a foreign language or talk a little like Cree. Internally, however, they refer to themselves as Tsitsistas or Tsitsistas, translated as the people, like-minded people, or like-hearted people. Before the 17th century, the Cheyenne inhabited the woodlands of central and southeastern Minnesota. During this phase, their lifestyle was vastly different from the popular image of Plains tribes. They were sedentary farmers living in permanent villages, cultivating crops such as corn, beans, and squash, known as the Three Sisters. They also harvested wild rice, fished in rivers, and produced pottery. Because of their proximity to the headwaters of the Mississippi River, they were often referred to as the Marsh People. Migratory pressure began in the mid-1600s, driven by indigenous geopolitical shifts and the encroachment of European settlers. Tribes such as the Assiniboine, Ojibwe, and Lakota, who had begun acquiring firearms from European traders, pushed the Cheyenne westward. This migration was not a single event, but a gradual process spanning over a century. By 1676, they reached the Missouri River, where they adopted a new semi-sedentary lifestyle, living in fortified earth lodges and establishing trade relations with the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara. The adaptation to the Great Plains environment was dramatically accelerated by the acquisition of horses around 1730. The horse was more than just transportation, it was a catalyst for a cultural revolution. With horses, the Cheyenne were able to abandon sedentary agriculture and shift entirely to a nomadic lifestyle centered on bison hunting. They were among the first in the region to introduce horse culture to Lakota bands. Horses allowed them to travel further, carry heavier loads, and develop highly effective mobile warfare tactics. The Cheyenne's success in dominating the plains depended not only on military prowess, but also on a highly organized governing system. According to oral tradition, this structure was a gift from their cultural hero, Sweet Medicine, who received divine instructions at the sacred mountain Noavos, or Bear Butte. Sweet Medicine instituted the separation of civil and military authority to prevent the anarchy and internal killings that had previously plagued the tribe. The Council of 44 was the central governing body, responsible for daily tribal affairs and the maintenance of peace both internally and externally. This council consisted of 4 chiefs or headsmen from each of the 10 main Cheyenne bands. In addition to these 40 band representatives, there were 4 principal or old man chiefs chosen for their exceptional experience and wisdom after serving a 10-year term. Council members held equal power and were expected to act as moral leaders. A Cheyenne chief was required to demonstrate extreme generosity, patience, and the ability to put others' interests above his own. They made major decisions regarding tribal migration, ceremonial schedules, and treaty negotiations. Council decisions often required unanimous consensus for issues involving the entire nation. If the Council of 44 was the civil authority, the military or warrior societies were the executive and policing wing of the tribe. There were 6 or 7 primary military societies, including the Swift Foxes, Elks, Bowstrings, and Red Shields. Each society had its own unique symbols, songs, dances, and regalia. For instance, Red Shield members carried red shields with bison tails, while dog soldiers wore bird bone whistles on their chests. The Council of Chiefs would select one of the military societies to serve as police for a specific period, after which the responsibility would rotate to another society. This arrangement ensured a fair distribution of power and prevented any single group from dominating the social structure. One of the most significant developments in 19th century Cheyenne history was the evolution of the Só'taétaneo'o, or dog soldiers. Initially, they were just one of the standard military societies. However, starting in the 1830s, the Dog Soldiers transformed into a separate band with its own political autonomy and territory. The birth of the Dog Soldiers' independence is often linked to the exile of their leader, Porcupine Bear, after his involvement in an internal killing. Instead of submitting to traditional punishment, Porcupine Bear's followers split off and formed a community dominated by highly militant warriors. They settled in the headwaters of the Republican and Smoky Hill rivers in Kansas and Nebraska, frequently intermarrying with Lakota bands. Dog Soldiers were known for their extreme bravery in battle. 4 of the bravest warriors were chosen to wear dog ropes or sashes. In battle, these warriors would stake the end of their sash to the ground, using a wooden picket pin as a symbol of their resolve never to retreat. They could only remove the pin if their comrades were safe or if another Dog Soldier released them. As conflict with white settlers escalated, the influence of the Dog Soldiers grew rapidly. They became the primary opposition to the Council of 44, which leaned more towards peace. The failure of the civil chiefs' accommodation policies in the face of U.S. aggression gave the Dog Soldiers moral legitimacy to take de facto leadership in defending the Cheyenne Nation. Cheyenne life is permeated by a deep spirituality where the boundary between the physical and spirit worlds is considered very thin. They believe the world is divided into 7 major levels, with Maheo as the creator of all. Cheyenne cosmology not only explains human origins, but also provides ethical guidelines for existence on Earth. The Cheyenne creation narrative begins in eternal darkness, where Maheo, the All-Spirit, lived alone. Tired of the dark, he used his power to create water in the form of a great salty lake. Then he created water animals, starting with fish and bottom-feeding creatures like snails and mussels. A key element in this myth is the role of water birds. Because Maheo could not see his creations in the dark, he created light. When the birds grew tired of flying and swimming, they asked for a place to rest. A small duck, or in some versions, a mud hen, dove to the bottom of the lake and brought up a mouthful of mud. This mud was placed on the back of Grandmother Turtle, where it grew and spread to become the land. From his right rib, he created the first man, and from his left rib, the first woman. The bison was created last as the most perfect animal to fulfill all human needs. These objects are kept in sacred bundles and are only opened during solemn renewal ceremonies. The arrow renewal ceremony is performed when internal blood is shed within the tribe, viewed as a spiritual stain that must be cleansed to restore cosmic harmony. The sun dance, traditionally called the World Renewal Dance, is the most important religious ceremony uniting the entire tribe. For the Cheyenne, this dance is not just an individual ritual, but a collective act of sacrifice to ensure the survival of the universe and the fertility of the land. During the ceremony, participants dance to the rhythm of drums and singing, often going without food or water for days, seeking visions or blessings from guardian spirits. The mid-19th century marked the end of the period of plains prosperity for the Cheyenne. The opening of the Oregon and Santa Fe trails, followed by the Colorado Gold Rush of 1858, brought thousands of settlers into the heart of their hunting grounds. While initial agreements like the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty had established territorial boundaries, the U.S. government continued to pressure the tribe to relinquish more land. The climax of this tension was the Sand Creek Massacre on November 29, 1864, an event that remains a deep wound in Cheyenne and Arapaho history. Chief Black Kettle, a respected peace leader, had brought about 750 people, mostly women, children, and the elderly, to a camp at Big Sandy Creek, believing they were under U.S. military protection. Black Kettle even flew an American flag and a white flag as a sign of peace in the center of the camp. However, Colonel Chivington and approximately 700 volunteer cavalry launched a brutal dawn attack. Ignoring the signs of peace, soldiers opened fire with howitzers and small arms on the unarmed residents. About 230 people were killed, and their bodies were horribly mutilated by soldiers who later displayed body parts as trophies in Denver. The political impact of the massacre was devastating. 8 members of the Council of 44 were killed, shattering the tribal's traditional leadership. This event triggered a widespread war of vengeance across the plains, led by the Dog Soldiers, who felt the peace policy of the old chiefs had failed completely.
Following Sand Creek, the Northern Cheyenne continued their resistance alongside their Lakota and Arapaho allies. In 1868, Black Kettle, still seeking peace, was killed in another dawn attack by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer at the Washita River in Oklahoma. Black Kettle's death marked the end of the moderate diplomacy era among the Southern Cheyenne. In the north, resistance peaked in the Battle of the Little Bighorn, Greasy Grass, in June 1876. The Cheyenne Camp, the northernmost village at the site, housed up to 300 family lodges. Cheyenne warriors like Lame White Man played a crucial role in surrounding and destroying Custer's battalion. However, this victory triggered a ruthless winter campaign by the U.S. Army, which eventually forced the last free Cheyenne bands to surrender in 1877 at Fort Keogh and the White River Agency. After surrendering, about 1,000 Northern Cheyenne were deported to Indian Territory in Oklahoma to join their southern relatives. However, the hot, humid climate of Oklahoma was a stark contrast to the high plains of Montana. The Northern Cheyenne began to suffer from malaria and malnutrition due to inadequate rations and a lack of game. In the first year, 41 people died and hundreds more became severely ill. On the night of September 9, 1858, Chiefs Little Wolf and Morning Star, Dull Knife, led about 300 followers in a daring escape toward the north. Only 92 of them were warriors. The rest were women, children, and the elderly. They traveled over 1,000 miles through Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, pursued by thousands of U.S. soldiers. In Nebraska, the group split. Little Wolf's group reached the Sandhills and eventually made it to Montana. However, Morning Star's group, slowed by sick followers, was captured and taken to Fort Robinson. There, the Army tried to force them back south by confining them to barracks without food, water, or wood for heat in sub-zero temperatures. On January 9, 1879, Morning Star's group made a final breakout from the barracks using a few hidden weapons. In a desperate flight through the snow, 64 Cheyenne were killed, while Morning Star and his family managed to escape and eventually found refuge with Red Cloud in Dakota. This heroic struggle finally forced the U.S. government to grant them their own reservation on the Tongue River in Montana in 1884. During their captivity and early reservation life, Cheyenne warriors developed a unique form of artistic expression known as ledger art. Using discarded accounting books, ledgers, colored pencils, and crayons provided by prison guards or reservation agents, they recorded the visual history of their nation. This art was a continuation of the tradition of painting on buffalo hides, adapted to European paper. Artists like Howling Wolf and Making Medicine used this medium to preserve memories of their independent life, bison hunts, battles against the U.S. Army, and sacred ceremonies. Ledger art was not merely aesthetic, it was an act of cultural sovereignty, a statement that, though they were physically imprisoned, their stories and identity could not be taken away. Today, the Cheyenne Nation is divided into 2 federally recognized political entities, each with unique challenges and successes in maintaining their heritage. In Oklahoma, the Southern Cheyenne remain united with the Southern Arapaho in a single tribal government. They have developed a diverse economy, including energy, agriculture, and media sectors.